All right, Joel Gausten here from joelgausten.com. For this conversation, I'm really excited to be joined by not only an old friend, but an old bandmate of mine from my home state of New Jersey, Mike Fintzy, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, Joel.
Hello,
I'm
Mike. How are you?
I'm really happy to be here. I've been happy since you asked me a couple weeks ago at the Jeff Stubbs Memorial Show. Um, little at first I was like, well, what am I going to add to this? But I think I got some tidbits that maybe some people want to hear. I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah, man, definitely, definitely. And of course, first, a huge shout out to everybody who was part of that event at Dingbats for Jeff, Lauren, of course. Our former band Broken Heroes played with their current incarnation,
Mm-hmm.
Ula and AG from Deblow Hammer, The Faulted, a few other bands as well. Great time. Despite the circumstances, it was
Mm-hmm.
a nice send off for Jeff. So
Yeah,
props to everybody who made that possible, for
it
sure.
was a good time. It really was.
Yeah.
Considering, yeah. And I really thought I was going to see him there. I
So,
think about that a lot. Like you think about who's going to be there. It's Clifton, it's Dingbats, or it could have been Harper Bart. It could have been anywhere. And you just kind of go through the Rolodex, who's going to be there. And it kept popping up in my head that I was going to see him. And I'm like, well, no, that's why we're going.
yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I know how it is, man,
yeah. It got
Um,
me out of the house. I don't get out of the house much. So I was thankful for that. That's
yeah,
a
well,
silver.
it got me out of the state, living up
Yes.
in New Hampshire.
Yeah,
So,
true, true.
it was worth the trip down for sure, man. So listen, I've had Tim on, I've had Jersey Pete on from
Uh-huh.
the Great Broken Heroes. I figure we'll keep that train rolling. You know, got to complete the puzzle as much as possible. And you and I kind of grew up around the same age in the same scene in
Yes.
Jersey. So, I think some of our experiences were similar even before the Broken Heroes thing happened for us.
I think
Um,
so.
and you've been out there for a long time. I think I first met you back in '97 when you were singing for the Cement Shoes. Uh,
Uh-huh.
so when did, just an introduction to this kind of
Yeah.
music place for you?
Uh well, I mean, real early on, it was a lot of hair metal and like Motley Crue and Poison. And I gotta tell you, I think I'll lose some points for this, but I couldn't like Master of Puppets was out and I went and said, well, I should stay away from the trendy stuff. I'm gonna buy Kill 'Em All. And it was just so fast I couldn't hear it. My ears didn't know what was going on. I think if I heard Bad Brains back then, I'd be like, what's going on? My little tiny teenage ears couldn't hear that. But a lot of the punk rock was seeping through like New York hardcore stuff and Dead Milkmen really kind of started the draw away from like 70s and 60s classic rock and 80s hair metal into something that I really identified with more. And so Cement Shoes is a few years away from that. But I'd say the real early stuff would be around the corner was Obsessions. Love it or hate it, it was a lot of good stuff went through there. There's kids in high school that had a band called Cimmerian. Those guys were awesome, very thrashy, very like, on the edge of like hardcore, but really more like thrash, like early Mucky Pup was something they really made me hip to. And and then my sister was the type of person that just makes friends with just about everyone she meets. And Rockaway Mall was our go-to for shopping, for hanging out, for all this stuff. And all of the skins and hardcore kids and some punk rockers and gothic chicks were all there. And they all hung out in that pit. It was like a lower level seating area outside, under the escalator in the middle. Like I
Yep.
think Lord and Taylor would be most recent. I don't know if Lord and Taylor was around back then, but that's where they would all be. And she started dating Sean Peckrell from Broken Heroes, and I was probably 15 or 16. And then this is before Jump for Oi came out, but I didn't know Big Bry. I didn't even know he was the original drummer for a while. But uh, I'd say right there is like when I started seeing like you know, what I really liked about music. And I mean, even just seeing a guitar, not plugged in, not anything, seeing an electric guitar and feeling the weight of it and all that just kind of brought things into a little bit more realistic for me. And I was like, this is pretty cool. And I'd have to say I didn't have the personality to be a front man. I am a born introvert, very shy, but I have a lot of extrovertive skills that I've developed over the years. But my go-to is just sit back and watch all the people, you know. But yeah, I would say early Broken Heroes, way, way back, very, very beginning of what they were doing. Um, and I wasn't talking, I was just there watching, I was very fly on the wall type of, I don't know if they thought I was miserable, but it really was just like I didn't know what to say. And what if I said something and they were like, "That's stupid"? Then what am I gonna do? Stand up to one of the broken heroes?
Right. Yeah, especially that version of Broken Hero.
Oh yeah, back then it was real angst. There
Oh,
was real angst, except for
oh,
Tim.
yeah. Oh, I
Tim
mean,
Tim's lovey dovey all the way.
oh yeah. Tim is peace and love. Peace and
Yeah.
I mean, our trajectories are so similar because I met Tim at the Rockaway Mall, you
Yeah.
know, and then I saw that version of Broken Heroes play with the Bristles at the Rusty Nail in Parsippany,
Forgot about that place.
and all those bands that came through there, Mind Eraser, I think Scooby Groove was one of those bands that was always playing there.
Yeah.
My first band, Another One's played there a bunch of times. You know,
Okay.
that was a place. But I think Obsessions, for better or for worse, was kind of like the real education as far as scenes coming through. And it's crazy to think back now when you and I were like early high school age.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Obsessions, which was, for those people who don't know, is an all ages place in Randolph, New Jersey, middle of goddamn nowhere. But at
Even
that,
for Randolph, it was middle of nowhere. It was just this
yeah,
long stretch, and then all of a sudden, there it is on the side of the road.
yeah, there's like trees and trees and trees, and then
Yeah.
um, but some of the shows that came through there in that era, Agnostic Front, Biohazard, back when they just came out with that first album, um, Sepultura on the Arise tour, Sick and
Mm-hmm.
All, Napalm Death with Danny Lilker from Nuclear Assault coming up and playing bass.
I saw Nuclear Assault there.
Yeah, fucking Sacred Reich, like it was that era, and it was an all ages place in Jersey, uh,
Right?
run by this guy named Bill Starvakis, who's passed away now.
Really?
Oh, you didn't know about that?
I
Yeah.
didn't know that. I knew that he was a little active on Facebook a few years. I had an account and I saw some old posts. I'm like, well, people don't post a lot. A lot of people don't post a lot, but I didn't know he passed away.
Yeah, this happened, I want to say within the last 2 or 3 years,
Okay,
you know.
that would make sense because I remember where I was when I was saying, "Oh, everybody's on Facebook, even Bill."
Yeah.
But,
Uh,
and it
you
was
know,
a while back.
Bill was a notorious guy, he basically dealt with a lot of local young bands, and he was the stereotypical ticket pimp, you
Yeah,
know. I mean, we all went through that gauntlet with that guy at least
we
once.
were we were cement shoes when we played shows there. I mean, we had people that weren't on the scene that still liked us as people and would go see our shows, and we still didn't sell enough tickets. And I'm thinking like, how many did he actually want us to sell? It's got to be a high bar, and that's how he gets you to keep playing.
Yep.
You don't have to pay for the tickets you didn't sell that you promised to sell, but you gotta play with Dying Fetus and all these bands that you don't fit in with later in the month or next month or whatever. I'm like, how are we gonna get out of that? You eventually do, and then he doesn't let you play there. You play under a different name, or you
Yeah,
have a 16-year-old sign the contract.
right, exactly. Yeah, he fucked around with me one time. The one time I played Obsessions with my first band, first real band, Another Ince. Well, I wanted to play Obsessions because Mind Funk was playing Obsessions,
Okay.
and I was really into Mind Funk. That's like a couple of the ex MOD guys, and
All right.
The old singer from Uniform Choice. It was kind of like the alternative metal thing was happening, and Mindfunk was
Right.
bands. And I really dug him. So I called Bill and I'm like, can my band open that show? He's like, well, I got to see how you do first. And I've got this date open with this, like local band, Bill. If you sell enough tickets for that, I'll put you on the Mind Fund.
Yeah.
So like a schmuck, we do it. We sell, I don't know how many tickets. So I go up to him after the show. I'm like, so are we good for Mind Funk? And he's like, oh, that show's already booked up. I got this other
Uh,
local band show in 3 weeks. I'm
Terrible.
like, that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He knew how to work the system.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, the first time you and I met was at Obsessions. It had to have been 97 because I went
Uh-huh.
to see your band, the Cement Shoes. You were the singer for that band. And I want to say the bill was you guys, maybe E-Town Concrete,
Could have been.
and I'm pretty sure 25 to Life is on the bill too.
We played with them a few times there. We played some good shows there. We
Yeah.
played with MOD. We played with Vision of Disorder. We played with Madball. All at Obsessions.
Hmm.
I think it would have been better if we were playing, more on their turf, but still,
Yeah.
you know, and that's I guess at one point maybe we were doing okay in Bill's eyes because he would put us on those shows. And Froggy, the drummer, long time friend, and he really was a go getter. Still is. He can organize things. He can get bands together. He can get shows together. He can get record labels together. And I think even back then, as like a teenager, Froggy was working Bill, and I think that's why we ended up on those shows. Because for some reason, Obsessions love to mix match the bands. I don't know. I don't know if that's on purpose or just if he was out of touch. But yeah, there was a lot of good times there.
Yeah,
He,
absolutely.
yeah, he pulled through for us once too. It was early 2000s, and I think we lost something. We lost our Legion Hall or whatever we were doing, and we called Bill and said, "Hey, Sunday afternoon, got nothing better going on. You want to open the doors for us?" And he did, and we had a show there. So he's a good guy. Yeah,
Did did you play any of those Warzone shows at Obsessions?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. You know, uh, for someone who I think I told you that in my early development to realizing I liked punk rock, I was listening to New York hardcore. A lot of that was like Gorilla Biscuits and DC stuff too, Minor Threat and Dag Nasty and all that, and Youth of Today and all that stuff. But Warzone never crossed my ears until I was in Cement Shoes and you start mingling with other bands and stuff. I don't think we played with Warzone. I'm trying to think of like our flyers and everything, and I don't think I've seen that. But some of that stuff, I was just like when MOD played, I wasn't cool enough to know MOD was awesome. I was just like, you know, sounds like a metal band. So I didn't know the history of it. I didn't know that there was going to be elements of hardcore in there, and I was more oi and like punk punk rock, not and like 80s hardcore, not the in the night. We can talk about this if you want. The 90s hardcore started really getting really heavy,
Yeah.
and I liked some of it. I liked it live, but I didn't listen to that when I wasn't at shows, not too much.
I always thought some of the music was decent, even the more like
Right.
hardcore. I didn't like the kung fu fighting nonsense. Honestly,
Right. It was exciting, but yeah, I agree with you.
it's
Uh
it wasn't my
yeah,
bag.
right. I would say the same thing for a lot of the music from like the West Coast. It was like we were calling it new school or snowboarder punk, and you go back and listen to it, some of it now. I think it was just the singing wasn't for me, but the music, they really had style. You know, they really had like punk rock, like some old roots type. Some of those bands.
Hmm.
It was just the singing could change everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, was it Cement Shoes your first like real band that was out there doing shows and recording
Yeah,
and stuff like that?
yeah. I have to mention Below Mentality. My friend Mark, we knew each other since we were little kids, and and one day in I think it was social studies class junior year, he's like, "You want to be in a band? Do you want to do a band with me?" Because I was playing guitar, I was noodling around, I wasn't as good as I wanted to be, so I didn't pursue it. Uh, I was like, nah, because I was just like, that's gonna be a joke. That's not gonna be serious. I'm not gonna, and I'm too cool. I'm trying to cut my teeth in the punk rock scene. I'm not gonna do a band like that. But I have to say, we had a blast. He's like, because I didn't join the band. He's like, well, you just do guitar for me. I'm like, yes, I'll do the guitar for you. And that became like some really good hangout sessions. We would just like joke around. I would come up with a riff and hit record on a tape deck, not even a. We didn't mic the room or anything. We're just sitting in a bedroom, and maybe we'd have a drum machine, and then we'd go out and go get food or something. But Cement Shoes, yes. That's the first band where you're just like, you're very serious, and the way that came about is I didn't know Frog very much yet. I knew him a little bit, but the bass player, my boy Jeffy, we grew up a couple houses away, and still very close. And he's just an artistic wizard, Jeff. Uh, if anybody needs really good, you know, black and white tattoos, he's got Mercy Seat in Denville, New Jersey. The kid is an absolute wizard, and he paints and he picks up an instrument and plays it. He's like, I don't know if I could play bass anymore. We do a Cement Shoes reunion, and he's awesome. And he's just a bowl of creativity. And at the time, I was just like, oh, hardcore band. I'll go up and they were doing a TSOL song, even though they were trying to be more of like the newer hardcore for the mid '90s. And I was like, I'll sing that with you guys. And then by the end of like that time, singing that, and they gave me some lyrics to sing something else, and I don't know how good I was. We were in a bedroom with 3 amps, a bass amp, 2 guitars, and full drum set in a bedroom. And I have no idea what I sounded like, but they liked it, and there it began. So that was the beginning of Cement Shoes, and that was the first, yeah, the first
Yeah.
one.
I always really dug you guys somewhere in this apartment. I've got a demo.
Ah,
Uh the the cassette demo, Curtains for Muggsy, is that what it was called?
ooh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's the very first.
yep. I've got
Oh
that
man.
one. I've got a Cement Shoe shirt, had
Oh,
from like 97.
is it a black one or a white one?
It's a black one.
All right, yeah, I know that one. That's the
So
same as the Curtains for Mugsy album cover. That was all right. So youngsters, that was a big deal. You made a day of that, and you went to a recording studio with adults, and they recorded you, and it might not come out good, but you don't, now it's like a band can get together, record, and break up all in like 4 or 5 weeks now. The recordings come out like as soon as you're ready. But back then it was a huge deal to get a recording for cassette or for vinyl or anything. It wasn't it was a commitment. It wasn't like a laptop, or now things are, and no I'm not taking any shots at anybody that's got an easy recording studio. I was just watching, just to go off the side a little bit. I was watching an interview with the singer of Conservative Military Image, and he
mhm.
was saying that first demo, he did the drums with a drum machine with his fingers, and it took him 3 months. And he'd go back through and then hit the cymbal right at the. He didn't play drums, he just hit the cymbal right at the right spot, and he just pieced that all together. I mean, that's commitment too.
Yeah.
So anyway, that Curtains for Muggsy and that other demo, the red demo, those were the very early days, 96, 97, and we were playing a good amount. And I think at the time they may have wanted something a little bit with some. I don't want to speak for the rest of the band, but I think they, and maybe not Dean on guitar and Tim, but when Tim, there's not Tim Miller, but when this other when the original guitarist left and we got Vic, uh, So we have Vic and Frog and Jeff. I really think that they maybe wanted some more like the hip hop element that was coming in with E Town and Crown of Thorns and even Madball was doing stuff and with that and but that wasn't for me. And I got to tell you, like Pipeline Days, I'm wearing my own shirt. It says NJHC on it, and I remember I don't know if you knew Skinhead Pat, and I just found out he passed away a couple 3 or 4 years ago. But Skinhead Pat Fahey, he was like, ooh, because it said hardcore, it said HC, and I was like, I'm like, it's not, because back then it was pretty divided. It
Yeah.
was it was baggy jeans or tight jeans. It was boots or sneakers. It was so back then it wasn't as, you didn't have the elements of both. And Oi was really like the older, like the mid and the early 80s Oi, and it got to a point where Pipeline would have every other Thursday would be punk and Oi, and every other would be hardcore. I
Right.
was going to all of them. Froggy would be bringing me to the hardcore nights. Not that you couldn't just show up by yourself, but and then I would be bringing him to Oi nights and punk rock, and pretty much just every week for quite a while. You didn't even know who was playing. You just show up.
Right. Right.
It really was like that. And but yeah, like to have a band and it's kind of like if you were going to explain Skinhead to someone and you have to explain that it's not white power stuff. You're talking to a skinhead and you say you're in a hardcore band in 1996, they're like, you know, like because they know what most of the stuff was. But Cement Shoes, I'm not saying I'm a hero or anything, but I think is a little bit more timeless. You can't really peg exactly when it's from, except for maybe the recording quality. Uh, and I that's my style. Is kind of like I'm doing Iron Duke now too, and
Yeah.
or at least we recorded stuff, and actually getting ready to practice next month. So Johnny, hey, if you're watching, we're on the ball now. Took a while to get
Well,
everything back, but yeah, I like when it sounds timeless. Like you can't really pinpoint where the band. I'm very nostalgic. I like old cars. I like old music. I like old style. But I like new stuff too. But I like it to be tricky.
I mean, I think you make a good point about being timeless.
Yeah,
Whose time was in hardcore? AF, Murphy's
yeah,
Law, Sick of
yeah.
It All. And those are all bands that didn't do that hip hop route, you know.
Right.
And look, I did like a lot of that stuff. I'm a big fan of
Me
Ezak,
too.
I dig his whole thing, Scarhead, his whole.
Me too. I like it better now. I was I was too stubborn to like it back then.
But I think my point is, I don't know of any new hardcore bands that have that kind of sound like that hip hop vibe. Whereas, there's a lot of bands now out there now who are doing like the more traditional stuff. So,
Yeah,
it seemed like it was an interesting moment in time there, but didn't have
yeah.
that longevity that,
Nah,
some of the.
I agree. And I wonder now, like if you go see some of those bands, if they lay into it thick or if they kind of make it a little less hip hop bars. I know Hate Six does a lot of cool video stuff, and there's an E Town Concrete video. It's got to be 5 or 6 years old. Still, I would in my age, I would say that's current, and um, and it was awesome. I can't even remember if he got really like hip hop elements in that live performance or not, um, but yeah, I like it a lot better now than back then. Back then, I tell you what, we were jumping around a little bit. It's part of the conversation. I didn't go to the first Lollapalooza. It was right around the corner,
Mhm.
Waterloo Village,
Right.
and I was too cool for that. You know, uh, if it didn't have like Descendants or some skinhead bands or just like some really roots punk rock, I was like, I'm not going to see Jane's Addiction. I'm not going to go see whoever Ministry. I know you're into industrial music and all that. It was never for me. When I went to the second Lollapalooza, Ministry blew me away.
Yeah.
It was really intense. It didn't get me listening to the recordings or anything, but When I found out like Pete and Scott Seidel and Garrett and all these all the local skins were at the first one, I was like, well, why didn't I go? Why was I too cool to go? You know, just because the music wasn't quite right. It was still close enough for early '90s. You know, we were looking for anything back then. It wasn't like it is now, where you just find a good punk rock show somewhere, even if you got to travel. Back then, it was like there was stuff you would travel for just to see something that maybe had like a good punk rock beat, even if the guitar and bass were funk, you know?
Right.
And we really were reaching for stuff. I mean, I suppose guys in the city and East Jersey maybe had it better and I didn't know about it, but can't Google stuff in 1995, 94, you know?
But amazingly, despite the lack of what we do today, like this kind of shit and Facebook and bloody TikTok and all that nonsense, we made it work. Like there was a
Oh,
massive
yeah.
friggin' scene mid to late 90s, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
and of course the big scene was, as you mentioned, all those Thursday nights at the Pipeline. There's massive
It really was. I think we got the best of both. I mean, it would be nice if there's a lot of video out there of like Pipeline early '90s. There's a good Wretched One set, and uh, be nice if other stuff surfaces. But at the same time, I'm glad my life is not documented and immortalized. My '90s and early 2000s. Um, I'm glad that was is not immortalized and out there forever. And now we get to kind of not retire, but we get to sit back and now you can watch like a crystal clear show with good audio from an iPhone
Yeah.
on your couch.
Yep.
You know, it's still not the same as rubbing shoulders and smelling people, but it's it's still I still really enjoy watching a lot of the stuff that's going on. And, some of the stuff's going on halfway across the country, or or in Europe. Hellfest
Yeah.
somewhere. Hellfest 2022 and 2023. Their their audio quality. Oh my goodness. You if you watch GBH, I think they were 2023. That guy, first of all, I don't know his name. I'm sorry. He's got the same voice, and it is awesome. And that microphone's getting every little part of his throat. And Exploited, the guitarist is like on fire, and um, a few other bands that I really enjoyed watching on those Hellfest things. I mean, I'm not going to France. I can't. Even if I could, I wouldn't, but I can't. You know, I got a lot of responsibilities here, but yeah. So I'm really happy that now we're in this day and age where maybe we can't quite stay up till 4 in the morning like we used to, and at least can't do it 2 nights in a row, and and but you got it all right here on your in your pocket, pretty much. And I think I would have liked to have been around a little earlier. It would have been awesome to be in the punk scene in the late '70s, mid '70s, late '70s, '80s. Late '80s got a little weird in my opinion, and but but I think we got you and I think we got a really good era.
Yeah, and we both hit it hard, man. I remember
Yeah.
some of those nights at the Pipeline. I mean, the one show that still sticks out for me that I know we were both at was that Anti-Flag show where the shit hit the
I'm
fan.
wondering if I remember my part in that correctly, but I know there was aggression.
There
I
was
know that.
yes.
We didn't like they were burning the flag. I don't even know what they were saying. I just remember they were burning the flag and we were like, huh. Yeah. So I don't know. No hard feelings, I hope.
Yeah, it's a long time ago, and
Yeah.
we all have adult lives and much bigger problems to deal with.
Yeah. I'll
Uh,
tell you what. I mean, that was nothing compared to some of the arrogance I pulled later on in life. I think you were there. I was kicking over tables at the meat locker. But I don't think any of your guests have mentioned the meat locker circa '07, 8, and 9. But that was a nice madhouse there. That place was nuts.
yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you though, I think just from my own perspective, I always felt like I was crashing somebody else's coming of age story when I played there. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It's like I've done
yeah.
this already. Like, yeah, the place is covered in shit and piss and it's a shithole. And I'm
Sometimes
like,
it floods. You get an inch of water all everywhere.
yeah, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, I did this when I was 17, man. What am I still doing at 30, whatever, you know?
Yeah, I
But
loved it.
there were some decent shows there.
It really was.
I remember some. Well, I won't mention the band that we didn't get along with there, so we'll move on. Um, but Cement Shoes, did
Yeah,
you guys put out any like official recordings beyond the demo stage?
yeah. We did a full length on CD and had it pressed. I don't have any copies. I kept giving it out, and I have burnt copies, but I don't have an actual copy of that, regrettably. But that's when things started changing a little bit. Uh, I started wearing earplugs. Game changer. Wearing earplugs as a singer, you don't blow out your voice because the monitor, you're your own monitor. You hear everything and you hear your limits. You hear what you're not able to do. I didn't know if my voice was ready. I started realizing, you know, you you might not sound your best on the first song, but now your throat's cut up for the rest of the set and you don't have to belt it out. So I was gaining control. I still have plenty of limits with my range. Um, so you try to put on a good show. You uh, try to compensate with taking out the drum set or something, But which I would do, and I think I'm paying for it. My back is a mess, but yeah, with the earplugs, man, it's like is a game changer, and it really I think you hear the difference on that CD. After the two demos, there's one called "Can You Dig It," throw a nod to the Warriors, and and then after that, we did one called the Mang Ting demo. Mang Ting was a Jet Li movie, New Legend of Shaolin. The little kid's name was Mang Ting, so we had a song about that and a few others, and then that was it. That was it. 96 to 2002,
Mhm.
in and out, which seemed like a long time. And there was, I'd say there, we kept band members, but it really was uh, for the most part, we kept the main band members, but it really was a change and we're also going from I'd say early street years, I call it, to a little bit more refined and able to handle yourself better in public at shows. And and that was a good time. We did a couple reunions. One was at Pat's Bar in Mount Arlington. We don't have to explain what that is. It's a tiny little watering hole, but we did one there because that was just like the place we liked playing at the time with Monster Truck Fan Club, and so Cement Shoes did that. And then when Lonnie passed away, uh, we did the Lola Polani. We got back together for that, and that was the last time we played. Was
Yeah,
then
it's been years now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'd do
It,
it again. I'd do another Cement Shoe show.
yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah,
I would definitely come down for that for sure.
nice.
It was funny because you said the band lasted till 2002. I was kind of separated for a few years by that point because the pipeline closed.
Yeah.
I started going to college down at Montclair, and
Okay.
the pipeline wasn't around, so I started going to Maxwell's a lot and
Okay.
got into that Hoboken crowd. And I was always still going to CB's and stuff too, but Maxwell's kind of became my place, which was a much different scene than the pipeline.
Yeah.
Maxwell was a little calmer, a little artier,
Mm-hmm.
more of that. I don't mean this in a negative way, but for want of a better word to describe it, it was a little more hipster.
Yeah.
It was kind of like perfect for college. Like I could bring a girl to Maxwell's, we'll have dinner at the restaurant, and then we'll go
Yeah.
see like Dean and Britta, like some arty cool
Yeah.
band. So it
I
wasn't
saw
hard.
Wanda Jackson there. It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
It's the
loved
kind of place to go see Wanda Jackson.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So, I kind of moved away somewhere
Yeah.
else at the point. and then I literally moved somewhere else. I lived in LA for a few years.
Right.
So I come back to Jersey in 2006, the dawn of MySpace. I'm on MySpace for the first time.
Oh yeah.
I reconnect with Jersey Pete.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to remember the conversations, but something along the lines of like the drummer they had at the time was looking to leave, and or some, I don't know. Like he was amicably leaving the band.
Yes. I think
And
that was he was joining Murphy's Law. I think that's what it
something
was.
like it was,
Yeah.
no, it wasn't Quincy. It was
Big Bry then. Then it was Big Bry.
who was the guy after Brian?
No, it was my recollection is it was Big Bry when I joined up in the end of '03,
Uh-huh.
and then somewhere in '04, uh we split ways is the best way to say it. There's different opinions. And and then I thought it was you, but maybe it was Quincy.
Was it
So
near?
the only
Was it
broken here is there's Joe Martin who was at the Stubb show, but he was after you.
right?
He was '09.
I may get this name wrong, and I'm sure if Pete and Tim are watching, you're screaming the guy's name at the screen. Shadood.
Oh, Tom Shadood.
Okay.
Oh, excellent, excellent dude. He was a guitarist for Dead Heroes, and he played drums. He didn't own a drum set. He played one show at some weird place around the corner from where I'm living now, in Netcong, New Jersey, and um, and that was it. He was in and out. So okay, so maybe you came in. It was Big Bry, original drummer by the way,
Yeah.
before the Jump for White 7 inch, and then and he was also doing Dean Dean and the Sex Machines, and um and then Quincy, and then Quincy left to spend more time on. He was doing Murphy's Law at the same time, I think, for a bit, and then he was just all Murphy's Law, and no hard feelings. We're still using his recording space and for practicing and stuff at Octopod, and then I guess Tom Shadood is actually really awesome that he was in the band for a second because I'd like to share the stage with him. And but he was just a blip. He was one show, and then he was like, I can't do it. So
Yeah.
all right, so yeah, and then you come. Oh
Yeah, and
06.
that's how you and I really got to know each other.
Yeah.
Because I rejoined Broken Heroes. My first stint was in '98 when Greasy Tony, rest in peace,
Uh,
lead guitar. And of course Pete, Um, and I was with that version of Broken Heroes for 2 years.
okay.
That
Yeah.
was you,
I
me,
guess that would
Pete.
be like,
Yeah.
well, we did a recording that I always labeled '08, so maybe a little bit more. But if you were '06 and then '07 and then yeah, 2 years.
I
Yeah.
split in '08 to come up here.
Okay.
So yeah, it was a solid 2 years though. And I
Yeah.
remember we did a lot in
We
those.
did a lot of traveling.
Yes.
We did Detroit. That was the haunted hotel.
Yes. Yes.
I
Yes.
remember you and Jersey Pete talking about the club downstairs. I didn't go. I went to bed or whatever, but I did some wandering around in the hotel. There was that one abandoned floor, and then there was the floor that you couldn't get on,
Mhm.
and then I guess way up top were apartments. There was people that lived there full time, and they said they saw some stuff in that place.
That was a
And,
fun weekend, but it was a weird weekend, man. We drove all
yeah,
the way out there to play one show, and then
yeah,
we drove all the way back.
yeah. I would say, yeah, you want to make it worth it, but at the same time, although I was talking about earplugs and be able to control my voice, 2 shows in a weekend was tough for me. I don't know if you were playing with us. We went down, we played South Carolina, and then we went to Atlanta for the Beer Olympics. We did Beer Olympics twice, I think, which was a weekend that Mark Noah from Anti Heroes organized. And there's a lot of good bands down there. And they came from all over, including us from New Jersey. And we had some crazy all nighters on some of those trips. But yeah, that was tough for me doing. That's not. I guess I belted out too much. I might be able to do it, in later years when I had some more self control. But even with the earplugs that I was praising a minute ago, 2 shows in 2 days was very tough for me. And we would squeeze in a lot of songs in 40 minutes.
Yeah.
It was a lot. I guess as a drummer, you feel that pretty much. But
We, looking back on it now, and I mentioned this when Tim was on the show, I like to consider myself a little more relaxed these days than I was back then, because I
mhm.
was always pushing the band, like, do more, be more professional, do this, do that. But when I look back on it, man, we busted our ass in that band too. I mean, we
Yeah,
rehearsed regularly, we played a ton of shows. There's a bunch of
yeah,
stuff we recorded too that's come out in
yeah.
some places.
We
And
we did. You're right. And there was a time when I was unemployed, and I devoted a lot of time to networking. That was MySpace days, and
we,
I would network and and I would, I think I was getting the Club Deep shows, which was across from Stone Pony, that club for a little bit,
yes,
and
yes,
and uh and I didn't. I wouldn't say I got us down in Delaware at the Mojo 13 with the Baron and Kurt and all those guys. I think he approached us. It just happened to be I was answering all the calls or all the messages. But yeah, they took good care of us, and that really got us, for another, I don't know, another couple hours in the car past Asbury. It was a totally different scene. So you could really play there one week and Asbury the next. It wouldn't have infringed on, you try to space things out. It wouldn't have infringed on that at all.
yeah.
And yeah, we were going down there a lot, which is it was a long trip home. And I guess we were doing Meat Locker a lot. That was the era with you. We do Meat Locker a lot, and and Connections. I guess Connections closed, and then Meat Locker stuff. No, Connections was around because we went right from there to Dingbats. Everything that went on in Connections just went 3 or 4 blocks up to Dingbats,
Right.
and yeah, that was a good era, and I think there's a lot of people that also realize that. That you see them at the Jeff Stubbs Memorial Show, and it really is like I'm not gonna. And this isn't to downplay Connections at all. It's not as That's not quite the same as the Pipeline connection, but a lot of the connections people have the Pipeline in their resume as well. So yeah, that's
Uh,
that's where we've made a bond because you don't talk to some of these people for a while, and then when you see them, so happy to see them. It's not too much small talk. You just pick up where you left off. And
right.
a lot of good people in Jersey. Definitely got to say that in the
Oh,
in the punk scene. Yeah, very tight.
yeah, yeah, and tight for years,
Oh
dec
yeah,
decades in some cases.
yeah.
And
I got to tell you, shy little Mike mingling with Niblick at the Pipeline. I bought the Happy Happy Oi Oi CD off of Larry, but all it really was, hey man, can I get a CD? And I follow him out to the car. I got nothing to say. Not you guys are awesome. Not I really love these guitar riffs you come up with. Nothing. Just okay. Here's the money. Thank you. All right, and I go on my way. But now years later, and I would say maybe it started like playing with Niblick in Broken Heroes and stuff like that, and that's definitely how I got a little tight with Wretched Ones, and um is because you're playing with them because I'm not really the best conversationalist when you have to shout. When you're in a bar and you got to yell things, my opinion is if you're going to yell it can't be small talk.
right.
It's not. It's got to be you're excited to tell somebody something. So I'm not saying I'm anti-bar scene. I'm just saying I don't. So I'm the guy outside talking. I'm not the guy trying to have a conversation at the bar, especially at Connections. Oh my goodness, the volume there, so
Yeah,
loud.
yeah. I do miss Connections. I miss Joanne. Rest
Yeah.
in peace.
Oh,
Another one. And Anthony Trance. We got to mention him. We can't talk.
I had some good conversations with him.
Yeah, he was a
I
good.
Yeah,
I mean, he
he
was
was.
a promoter, which means everybody fucking hated him. You know,
Yeah, right.
but he was a good guy. He really was. He really was.
Yeah, I liked him.
Yeah.
And I didn't deal with him much. It was really just genuine conversation when I talked with him. So yeah,
Yeah,
I
he
think
was.
Fry doing all the cement shoe shows wasn't me. So,
Yeah,
and
Trent
that's the only time
was
he
like
was promoted. I wasn't in Broken Heroes. He was already. I think he passed away in the '90s, right? Late '90s, before
90,
the pipeline closed.
yeah,
Yeah.
98, I think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was like Trance died, and a couple months later the pipeline closed. It was like
Yeah.
gone, you know.
Yeah. There was a camera at the last pipeline show. There was somebody with a camcorder. I asked Johnny Powers about it, from Headwound, Johnny the drummer Headwound, and he said he kind of knew who recorded it, and that he'd already kind of dug a little bit to see if there is actually a recording. I don't know. He just, the person didn't answer, or says they don't have it, or I don't know what the answer. I shouldn't even say that, but whatever it is, it hasn't surfaced, and I don't know that it will. But
Mm.
I think you should put out a public service announcement when you
Yes.
talk with Emilio next.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
he if he asks, then I think maybe that's our best chance to get the video of the very last pipeline show. Because it was Head Wound, it was Wretched Ones, and a little bit of Niblick before it got shut down. And I don't remember who played first, but I think there was a fifth band. But that was it. Speaking of, I pulled this out. This is the only thing that I really am like. I hold a lot of ticket stubs and stuff like, but this thing, I don't know if you can see it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Is it backwards? It's backwards on my screen. Is
I
it
can
okay?
see it's facing the right way on this end.
So I didn't go to this, but my sister brings this home. Punk Fest '93.
Mhm.
And this is like a show that we would have loved to have anytime since '93. There's got Those Unknown, Broken Heroes, Oxblood, Wretched Ones, Head Wound, Templars, Surgeon General, Banner of Hope, Chaotic Discharge, Dysfunctional Youth, and the Bristols. Can you imagine that at the Stone Pony? And
I,
imagine it in 1993. I was just a year short of going. Well, I started going to shows at the Pipeline when I got my license in '93. So I missed this one,
yeah.
but I've had this ever since. I'm a pack rat, and definitely with stuff like that. That is like that is the catalog that helped me. There's Anthony Janos, punk rock show WNTI in Centenary College, Hackettstown, where I would be pumping gas the next day, and then every 45 minutes he goes through the list of everything he plays, and I'm writing it down, and I'm counting the songs, and I'm like, all right, that's that band. And then I would go to Let It Rock in Montclair, and Bob had almost everything that I was looking for off the list, including Urgent Fury. I don't know. Urgent Fury is kind of like a if it's there's no loss of punk rock points or hardcore points if you don't know Urgent Fury. But if you know Urgent Fury and somebody else does too, it's kind of like you're instantly friends. And I've met people through YouTube comments and friends of friends where we're just like, yeah, Urgent Fury. It's excellent. Have you heard them, Joel?
I haven't. First time I've heard
All
them.
right. I uploaded it to YouTube, both sides of their 10-inch. It's their demos put into a 10-inch record. There's some stuff out there that were, if I can self-reflect a little bit, there's some stuff out there that I really like because when you're a teenager, it gets you, and now it's a song or a whole album that's just yours because of it was your adolescence, and you still listen to it the same way now. But if I was just hearing it for the first time now, it would just be like, whatever, you know. You need that teenage angst or whatever chemicals or pheromones get released when you hear music and they say that happens more as a teenager than it does in your elder years. But Urgent Fury, I don't think is one of those bands. I think Urgent Fury is one of those bands. It's good no matter when you hear it for the first time. So I'll send you that. But
Yeah,
but yeah,
thanks.
that's from Anthony, and I went right to Let It Rock, and there it was. Bob had it, and he didn't have a huge store. It's
No,
just everything in that store was awesome.
right. Yes.
All the head stuff, and all the Link music, all the stuff that was like I think Link is that the I think that was the bass player from the Business in the '80s, the tall guy. I think that was his record label. I might be wrong about that, but like that kind of stuff that schooled me a lot too.
Yeah.
Here's a sob story for a young kid in the '90s. Um, some of this stuff I call it a calling card. You'd be like, you don't never heard this band, but you're flipping through records somewhere and you're like, that looks like an album I would like. You need those. Whether it's the name or the picture of the people, the names of the songs, like, if it was just like a plain black album with the name of a band and it said something like with aggro or shaved or argy bargy or something like that, or hooligans, then you're like, all right, I'm gonna buy this one, you know? And it could be a disappointment, you know, but that's how some of my shopping was done. You don't get to, I mean, in the 60s and 50s and 60s, you could go and listen to a record with headphones and stuff. And now you can get a sample of it. You could even just do it on your phone real quick and be like, yeah, I'll buy that, you know? But back then, you were taking a chance. I wasted some money on some stuff that I try to listen to later. Even now, I give it another chance. I'm like, ugh, I can't throw it away, but I just, yeah, some bad mistakes, just thinking I was doing the right thing.
Well,
And
I
it was
think
a
a lot of
horrible.
a lot of people have had that bad religion into the unknown slash anti-Nora League, the perfect crime
Oh,
debacle.
is that when they got a little bit more mainstream sounding?
Yeah, yeah. And you buy
Yeah,
the record and you're like, it's fucking awesome now.
yeah, yeah.
Do it now, but at the time you're like, what the fuck is this? Like, did I get the wrong band?
There was a time I think the Blanks played with Anti Lower League 3 dates in a row. They played in Rhode Island. I forget the name of the bar, and they played at the Club Europa in Brooklyn, and then they played at Crocodile Rock in Allentown. And Matt Basser and I went to every one, and we still joke about it to this day. In Rhode Island, someone just yells to Anti Lower League, they're like Queen and Country. And I'm like, like it's a cool song, but that is not the Anti Lower League you're going to see.
Right.
That is the whatever they were experimenting with. I don't know if they were trying to make it big and a little bit more radio friendly, or if that's just the style they were getting into. I think that way I made a mistake. I, I don't even want to talk badly about TSOL, but there's two different TSOLs,
Right.
and for me, one is way better than the other. And some people like them both just as much in a different way, but for me, there's two different TSOLs. I'm sure there's. I mean, you think of Broken Heroes. There's dozens of them. There's dozens of different, and it's gone through a few different phases, as well as band members change things. And I got to give props to Pete and Tim. Tim original, and I would call Pete original. He wasn't on the very first, but he's original as far as I'm concerned. And uh, they're always like, do it your way. I mean, they're not going to let you really go off the rails, but he's really like, it doesn't have to be verbatim. You could sing it your way. You're the new drummer. You play it your way, and they've always been like that, and that's really cool. It kind of makes Broken Heroes kind of a club more
Yes.
than a band.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a
for
social
real.
club that happens to
Yeah,
music,
yeah,
you know. And
yeah,
I'll say this, particularly about Pete, but definitely with both of them. I mean, everybody who's been in Broken Heroes with Pete is very fortunate, in my opinion, because you cannot find a more loyal bandmate. He's so dedicated to that band, and
yeah.
he welcomes everybody who's in the band. I mean, he'd move heaven and earth for anybody who's been in Broken Heroes, you know.
It really would. Pete is very dynamic because I've seen Pete take down a guy twice his size, and we're talking the Pete you said you didn't quite recognize in that pipeline video. It was they were opening for the Business. I think it's '94 because that's what our friend Fred wrote on the VHS tape. But Pete says it's '95. But whatever it is, that's your smaller Pete. And that Pete I saw take down a big goon on the double yellow line in the middle of the street outside the pipeline. And I was like, I don't understand this. I'm like, that guy's got all his friends over there fighting some of our friends. And when he sees you pummeling this guy, they're all going to come over here. And it's just going to be you and me, Pete, against all these. I'm a thinker like that. I wouldn't have run away, but I was like, you know what? This guy was wrong, deserved a little bit of street justice, but Pete really just he was on. But so you have that Pete. Then you have the Pete that really gets stuff done. Usually you find like a guy that likes to clobber people in the middle of the road in Newark. Um, Not so responsible with keeping a band together and getting, transportation and coordinating a large show. But he does that too. And then he's, like you said, a really loyal friend and yeah, very dynamic person and but always real the whole time. It's not like he's flip flopping his attitude around. Love you, Pete.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
he's
love,
a
I mean, love you too, Tim. We can't leave Tim
yeah.
out.
So Tim is really ready for anything. He really is. He's like, that sounds like a good time. Let's go. Or yeah, Mike, you should do that. I remember we're talking introverted Mike, just a fly on the wall at Broken Heroes shows. And but I was giving Tim a ride, after band practice. Nobody went home. We all went here or there, and I'm driving Tim. He's in my car, and he's like, "Oh, we got to get you a band." He's like, "You play guitar?" And I'm like, not that good. Oh, we'll get you something. Like that's the Tim that was maybe our real first memorable conversation, I guess I would say, with him, where he was just trying to help me out. He's like, "Oh, no, no." But he's like, "Oh, we'll get you a band." And that's the kind of Tim that is still to this day. He's he's uh he's a good time. He's ready for a good time. He's very supportive. Excellent. And I gotta say, uh, there's nobody that was in Broken Heroes at any time that I was in Broken Heroes that I didn't like. It was we always meshed well, and the van rides to the show were just as good as the show, if not better sometimes.
Hmm.
And it got us geared up for some good banter on stage because now we all knew the answers to the stuff we were joking around in the van. We would use it on stage.
Hmm.
Delivery and the response, it was perfect. It was an excellent time in Broken Heroes.
And I gotta say, Tim is probably my favorite ex-band member of any band I've been in. Because I mean, it means that I don't have to be in a band with him anymore. No, I'm kidding. I love you, Tim. I love you. You know that. You drove me fucking crazy in that band, but I still love you.
Yeah, really good. There was a time Tim and I, if it was his birthday, he'd buy me sushi, and if it was his birthday, I'd buy him sushi. But I mean, like a big boat of sushi, and we're sitting at the bar, and the guy's giving us all the scraps from the sushi he's making for other people. We would just roll out of there. We had some good times outside of band stuff, and uh, yeah, hanging out at an apartment, whatever it was. We had some good time going to shows. We go to shows too, and yeah, good times all the way, all the way. Tim was always a good guy.
I'll tell you what, man, the way I sum those two up, if I'm in a place where I need like a good time or just to like laugh and just have fun, Tim's on my mind. I'm like, that's
Yeah,
the go-to.
yeah,
If I'm ever in the shit and like it's getting real and he's
mm-hmm.
throwing my back, that's Jersey Pete.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
that's how I would sum up both of those
yeah,
guys. You know,
yep. They're good like that.
totally.
I have to say, I wonder if Pete was there. I'd say my first legit fight at a show was with Broken Heroes. It was at Obsessions. I won't say the guy what band the guy was in, but there was this guy and he was hitting on everybody's girlfriend. And it was crude too. It wasn't just like he was seeing if they were available. He was being a jerk. So finally we mauled him. And it was me and Sean and Pete. I think Pete was there. He must have been. And even Tim. Tim busted his hand pretty good. He could barely play that night. They didn't play yet. But and I suppose Meathead was there. But yeah, and there was a big dude too. So it took all of us. But yeah, I'd say that was my first fight at a gig was with those guys. And then the stuff that went on at the pipeline, it wasn't a lot of trouble at the pipeline, but sometimes there was, and and then you would see who's who your real friends are,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Um, like I said, this is kind of a blank area for me because I was Gonzville by then. I was
yeah.
1,000 miles away. Was Monster Truck Fan Club the next band after Broken
That
Heroes?
was a side project during Broken Heroes.
Okay.
So this is Froggy again. He gets things organized. So Froggy from Cement Shoes, the drummer, he wants to do and right now he's he's in at least 4 bands, and without exaggerating, and with various levels of activity and hardly ever playing. I think it's a lot of recording, uh, but yeah, he wanted to do a side project, and he wanted to do something that was kind of garagey, like 60s garage type, twangy but aggressive, fast. Just not real heavy guitars, but it just didn't happen. It just like the heaviness bled through. But it wasn't like heavy like Cement Shoes, and it wasn't heavy like I'd say it wasn't heavy like Broken Heroes, and I wasn't singing like I was singing in Broken Heroes. I was experimenting with different stuff, and and I was really happy with how that stuff turned out. Tim Broken Heroes, he wrote a couple of Monster Truck Fan Club songs because he did 1 or 2 practices with us, and then he realized he just couldn't commit. But there's a couple of really good songs by Monster Truck Fan Club on the early stuff that Tim wrote, and the guitarist is Dean from Cement Shoes, and he is a really good guitarist. And when I say really good, I mean like some people are technically good and just have that style, and it's hard for them to break away. But Dean just really comes. He would give us CDs of just some stuff of him noodling around, stuff that's been in his head for a while, and some that's noodling around. And it's like every riff was. It wasn't just like. It was like actually like he was talking with the guitar without being like hair metal type stuff. It it was and he was technically good too. He would do stuff where not a whammy bar, but he would loosen the string and go blah blah blah, and then put it back in tune real quick, and then start playing. I'm like, and he's not showy like that. He just that's something he wanted to do, and he made it happen. And yeah, I loved being in that band. Monster Truck Fan Club was very low stress. It was let's do something weird. If we want to do something weird, let's do like a 7 seconds type song. If we want to do a 7 seconds type song, let's do a slow weird thing and put a child's piano in there or a mandolin. And I'm like, I'm gonna sing like this on this one. They're like, whatever. There's a song but they didn't know what they wanted to do for the guitar solo, so I was just like, I have something in my head, and we're just doing the scratch tracks just for like like a 2 week demo, and then we were gonna record. And so I just start going meow 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 meow, and like whatever the solo was, and they're like, let's not do a guitar solo. Let's just leave Fintzy, with his voice there, and we did, and it turned into at shows it'd be more like blah 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 blah, like you. But yeah, that was like I don't. We're not writing a soundtrack for the pit. We're not trying to stay true to this, you know, decade old scene or decades old scene. It's just like this is Monster Truck Fan Club, low stress. You want to take 6 months off? We don't care if we lose our relevancy. Where like with Broken Heroes, I wanted to be in Delaware, every other month or even once a month would have been fine. I figure if we're gonna make the trip, people think we're awesome when we're done, but they'll forget us. So I wanted to go to, so we had that pressure where we wanted to go to Delaware often, and we were like the house band at Connections and one of them. And but Monster Truck Fan Club, you need 6 months off. We take 6 months off. We don't have to keep rolling. And I think that's why that band was around till 2014, I think 14 or 15 was when we stopped recording. And we did some vinyl, and we did some online stuff, and yeah, awesome time in Monster Truck Fan Club. Love all those guys, and and talented, very talented, all of them. Which I think I'm blessed with that. Just kind of fall into this stuff. That Iron Duke stuff, man. Some of my favorite stuff. And that was just like pandemic stuff. That was Frog again. It's like, let's do like a negative approach type of songs. And Johnny D from Gavel. That's a thrash band that's still current in New Jersey, been around a while. I'm like, well, you know what? If Johnny D's gonna do guitars on this Iron Duke stuff, it's probably gonna just end up being kind of thrashy and metal. But Frog will do the punk rock, hardcore punk rock drumming, and Guy Naaman was doing bass. He played bass in Monster Truck and in Broken Heroes, and he did Octopod Studios with Quincy, as you know, and this stuff just came out so good, timeless. There's there's maybe a couple lyrics where you could be like, that's not 80s, but for the most part, the content could be like, when was this? And and the sound that Johnny D got, no thrash, just straight up heavy sounding 80s hardcore punk rock, like pre 85 hardcore. And I'm like, that stuff, I'm really happy with that stuff. And we're going to be playing out soon. Johnny Powers from Head Wound and Fear Gods, and Jack Steeples from AOD and Fear Gods and all that. They pressed the CD for us.
Mhm.
And I said, we can't support this. We can't play out much. He's like, just do 2 or 3 shows. And I'm like, okay, we can handle that. And then it fell flat. So public apology to 139 Records, but you can still buy their stuff. You can buy Iron Duke there. You can listen on Spotify. And next month, I think we finally got it together where we're gonna practice, and Iron Duke will be playing, hopefully with M60, like Larry from Niblick and Fear Gods for sure. Like we told them like we'll do some 139 Records shows, and then it's been over a year now, and I'm just like, I'm not dragging my feet. I feel like a total loser. Like I can't get anybody to stick around. But yeah, I think we're finally set and we're gonna do it. So look out for that.
Cool. Yeah, I dig that stuff, man. It reminds me a little bit of like early suicidal tendencies.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Thanks.
that was the
Yeah.
first impression I got when I heard the
Oh
scene.
wow. Yeah. I
Yeah.
love it. I love it. I'm very proud of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good band, man. I'm looking forward to possibly seeing you live, you know.
Yeah. That'll be cool.
Yeah.
And so I got a 3-year-old daughter and a 9-month-old son. Don't let anybody ever say it's kind of easy. Um, it's a lot of work, but yeah, we're gonna make it work. We're gonna do some practices, and we're gonna get out there, and it'd be awesome if you were there for sure.
Yeah, well, definitely let me know, you know.
Yeah.
Be cool to check that out. I'm gonna try to get down to at least Connecticut to see one of the AOD shows.
Oh,
Speaking
cool.
of,
Yeah.
it gets kind of tough up here, man, because everything's like 5 hours away.
Uh,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? And it's like sometimes it's on a Sunday and it's like I gotta take off of work the next day if I go down, so
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
but I'll
Yeah. I
definitely
get it.
make an effort if you guys, book some shows.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. I would
Uh,
like to see that. Like to see you again
yeah,
in the
totally.
flesh. Yeah.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
would pick up where we left off. We talk
Yeah.
about the old.
And hang out when, we're not saying goodbye to somebody,
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
it in a
That's
more
true.
positive way.
Absolutely.
So you got some possible shows coming up with Iron Duke.
Yeah.
I'll put a link up for them in the video description. People should definitely check out what you're doing now. The band's great. And
Thanks.
it's cool that you're still playing with with those guys. Guy was with us for a bit in Broken Heroes, as you
That's
mentioned.
right.
Um, and it's Froggy playing drums for Iron Duke, right?
Yeah, but he dropped out, and Guy dropped out. So it's me and Johnny D, and then Sean Orr from Love Cinema Volume 6, and he was in Chapter 13 in the Pipeline Days.
Right.
He's a current guy. He said he'll do bass, so we hope we can make that work. We're gonna we're gonna practice in West Patterson. That should be a halfway point. And then our friend Steve, he was in Broken Heroes up until about 6 months ago. He moved out of state. He thought he was gone for good, and that's when Broken Heroes picked up Quincy. I think is his third time with Broken Heroes. And this lineup with Broken Heroes right now is just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And 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 so but Steve's back for he said a year a couple months ago. So I think if we can get this Iron Duke thing going for a while, he'll be on drums. He's a great drummer, and he's definitely up for the task. And he's one of the key players in the life of Mike Fintzy. So thank you, Steve. And
Wonderful.
then yeah, and that's where we're on that. And other than that, I don't want to give up, but I might be on hiatus while these kids grow up. You
I
know.
Well, it'll give us a couple. It'll give you a couple of years to prepare for when you and I rejoin Broken Heroes. And
Yes. Yeah.
when,
Yep.
when I was down there at Dingbats, I got talking to Aaron, the current guitar player in the band.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
met him that night, and I said, I look forward to playing with you in the future. And he said, "What, you mean tonight? Like you're gonna do okay?" They're like, "No, years from now, when I rejoin the band, I look forward to playing with you." You know,
Yeah. I mean, I had seen Parasitics in the past at Mother's in Easton, PA. They were doing shows there. Monster Truck played a show there. I don't know if we played with Parasitics that night, but I have seen them there. And but it wasn't until he joined Broken Heroes that I kind of follow him more on Facebook and stuff like that. And we didn't talk much even on Facebook, but he was so happy to see me at the Stub show. It was really kind of like, hey, we know each other online. But he was just like, Fintzy. I was like, I just gave him a big hug and I picked him up. You know, I was like happy that he was happy to see me. And what a cool dude. Yeah. And you know, we didn't have to do an introduction. It was like, this is the future is now. You meet each other online and then you hug each other when you see each other. Same with Jay Beluski putting on these what does he call it? Poor man show, poor man. Is it just poor man or and the stomp out abuse shows? And he works really hard. I mean, he's down the shore and he's in Kearney and he's wherever else probably. And he's from way back in the day. He's friends with Big Bry, original drummer for Broken Heroes, and good old friend of mine for a long, long time since the '90s. And the first time I met Jay was at one of his shows where Fear Gods played and M60 and a lot of the 139 Records bands and we already knew who each other were from online, which is fine. And we're just really happy to see each other and we were talking and this and that. I guess that's the way it goes now, you know? It's like online dating, but for the punk rock scene. Just to keep in touch with each other. We're not hanging out at Rockaway Mall every day, that's for sure. Or Dunkin' Donuts. Dunkin' Donuts in Ledgewood was infested with skins and punks back in the '90s.
Yep. Yep. Those
Yeah.
were interesting times, man.
Yeah.
You know, the Rockaway Mall, the hub of skin activity in northern New Jersey.
Yeah. Who would have thought, you know? Who would have thought? And really it was Pete right in the middle of all of that, you know, and he's still around, you know, keeping things going with the band and shows and interview with you. He had plenty to say about what's going on nowadays. There is a lot of new bands out there, and thank God for the internet because I wouldn't be hip, to any of like Intimidation's been around for a few years. I mentioned Conservative Military Image, who they're blowing up, but still also like the Stress and Klaxon, and all these guys got mustaches, right? Or at least one guy in each band has a mustache. I don't know if that's the new hip skinhead look, or because that was around for just a blip in the '80s. You'd see old pictures of guys with a mustache in some of these bands. Are like, oh yeah, I guess some of the guys have mustaches, but now it's like mustache part of the uniform. I'm not allowed to have a mustache. My wife won't let me.
I think there needs to be the return of the Black Death look. And for people who don't know, go online, type in Black Death band. Black Death was an African American metal band from the mid '80s.
From Philly?
I
Was it just Death?
no, Black Death. I
Okay,
know
all right,
it's funny because there's the band called Death.
right.
It was in the 70s, African
Okay,
American guys. This was a little bit later
Black
called
Death.
Black Death.
Okay,
Look those guys up and look at the image of these guys from back in the day, and you'll get the joke. But
yeah.
I'm waiting for the Black Death look to come back.
I'll
So,
have to. You'll have to send me one because I lost my pen. I would write it down, but
yeah, I'll send you a picture, but I'm waiting for that
Black.
look to come back. If that look comes back, I'll rejoin the scene full time.
All right,
So
that's
that's
another thing. I don't mean to keep going back to saying like we got a badge of honor, but it was hard to dress a certain way in the '90s. Like finding the stuff. There was two tone. This pivotal moment was my first time to two tone, and and you get spiky bracelets there. You didn't get that in the Rockaway Mall, you know. Uh, or certain t-shirts, even a Blondie t-shirt in 1994, 95. The only place to get it was it wasn't Two Tone, and it wasn't Let It Rock, but there was another store on that stretch in on Bloomfield Ave in Montclair, and that's where I would get like my Clockwork Orange t-shirt or my
Cafe Sounds.
what?
Was it Cafe Sounds?
That was right next to Two Tone, right? It was almost like the same opening with two doors, one to.
Yeah.
I think it was up the street. I think it was even up the street from there. Cafe Sounds. I stepped in there a couple times and bought some cassettes, but I think there was even another store, and they had a lot of T-shirts hanging up and or down on the boardwalk. If you go down the shore, then there'd be some spots. That's where I got an Exploited T-shirt in '93 and a Young Ones T-shirt same time. Uh, I'm sure in the city there was 99X in the city, and there was one in Hoboken. That's where you get your docs, or get a grips, and uh, it was a travel. I remember some one of the skins from Rockaway Mall. His name was Junior, and he lived in a house in Wharton, and it was like Chris Burke, uh, R.I.P. Chris Burke, and Chip from original bass player for Broken Heroes. He was there, and Tim and Sean were hanging out there, and I don't know if Laura DeGardio, she's married to Chuck from Los Gatos Locos, Tombstone Brawlers, Chuck. So Laura McCann, she was back in the early Broken Heroes days, and I don't know if she was living in that house, but everybody was in this house. And there's one guy, Junior. I don't know why he had to go to the city. It was kind of like an in and out, real quick thing. But it was my sister and I went, and I drove. I just got my license, and we park in Hoboken, and we take the path into the city. It was like Lower East Side, and he pointed out 99X, and he's like, "You get docs there," and he pointed out some other place. Can't remember now, but all I remember is that's that was my education on how to get into Manhattan.
Mm.
And I just studied everything we did, and I remembered everything, and that's how I would get to the city from then on. I would park in Hoboken, I'd take the path, get off here, and walk here, walk there, and I mean now you just type it in your phone. It even give you walking instructions if you're walking. For a while we had MapQuest. I still find MapQuest printouts within some of my flyers and stuff. I'm like, oh my goodness, trying to read that in the dark on a way to a show. And but yeah, that stuff was like you got your education from someone else. I had a tape of a tape of a tape of a tape, and it just said "Oi," and I was just like a little 15-year-old, younger brother, and I'm like, "What's that?" And she's like, "Oh, it's what skinheads listen to." I'm like, "I want it," so I took it from her, and I loved it. The first song on there was "Skinhead Girl" by The Oppressed. Somewhere in there was "We Don't Want to Play" by Niblick, but I didn't know what it was. And there was anti-heroes on there, there's Wretched Ones, early stuff like We're Not Stopping Now, and I'm like, when I first got my license and we're going to the pipeline, my first time there, I'm like, I'll drive. And so we all pile in my car, and these guys know how to get there. There's like Scott Seidel and my sister and maybe Sean, maybe someone else. And I just had a feeling that we were going to hear the band that sings We Don't Want to Play. I didn't ask anybody. I never asked anybody who sings this. Just a feeling, and that was it. Boom. It just broke right into it. They did actually that night. They did their first 7 inch and second 7 inch in order, which I always like stuff. Now bands do that. You can go see a band play their album in its entirety, start to finish, songs in the right track order on, uh, which is also a lost art form. With shuffling and streaming. But yeah, now I know exactly how to get to the pipeline, and I'll never. Now I forgot which exit, but I'll never I never forgot from that time. It went the same way every time, and and now I know who Niblick is, and now I know who the Wretched Ones are, and that's I mean, that tape still has some mysteries on it. It's from 1990. It was just circulated amongst all the Hopakon, Blairstown, Mount Olive skins, and I got my hands on it, made my own copy, and that's how you got stuff. Copy of a copy of a copy of. I used to sing even up until the late 90s. I would see Anthony Janos, and I'd be like, "Who sings this?" One of them was an Undead song. We don't want the poor or the rich in New York City. I'm like, "Who sings that?" He's like, "Oh, that's the Undead. That's Bobby Steele." Like, thank you. And then another one was an Eater song. Here I am, 1998. Still didn't know who sang, that song. And then I go and buy, but that's how you progress. And but that was it, man. Even in the late 90s, you got to ask somebody, and you got to go to shows, and you got to mingle, and you got to go to parties, and then you know, and it was like a rite of passage having a certain knowledge and a certain record collection.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying it's wrong that people have the internet at their fingertips, but it was it, there's a little bit of pride in the collection of knowledge you get through the 90s into the early 2000s just by being in the know and hanging with the right circle of people. So
There was that sense of discovery
yeah, yeah,
to another. I mean, Niblick was the first Headache band I heard.
yeah,
That was the What's Your Deal was the record when Brian was singing
yeah.
for Niblick Headbane.
Yeah,
Then the bass player of my first band, my friend Dave, who's a little older than I was, uh, he was friends with like the guys in Those Unknown.
oh, okay.
The Those Unknown record, and it was like, oh, who's this band, the Wretched Ones, and
Yeah.
that's how it happens, man. I remember first time I played with Head Wound was remember Ashley's in New York, Ashley's in Greenville, New York.
Mm-mm.
It was such a not Oi centric venue at all. I think it was one of those places. It was like a bar, and it had like a light, like a strobe, not strobe, like a neon light kind of thing in the audience. It was like a dance place, I think, and it became Club Kicks after a
I
while.
don't know either of those names. No.
Yeah, this was like 93, 94, and we played with Head Wound. First time I met those guys. And then you dig into like Harry Baggs's history and realize he had that earwaxing, he had that band Mechanical Bride. I ended up playing on one of his solo records.
Oh,
You know,
cool.
used to record, my old bands used to record at Harry's studio, and
You and I recorded Discount Liquors at his house.
was I in Broken Hill? Did we?
You, I
You sure?
think you were, and I think I remember just we were all standing there shouting during that bridge part of the song. You and Ryan, were you in the band with Ryan Bamford on bass? Okay. I really remember you being there. I guess it must have been someone else. My mistake. But and I guess you would remember if we did one song only. We did it for Backstreets of American Oi Volume 2. That's Bodon from Antagonizers. Uh, he did the one in 95 that started off with Skinhead Rock and Roll. Um, and that's when Tim was first singing the first time around when Meathead left. And I was there for that. That was at Merlin Studios. I was doing backups on that. And then we did Discount Liquors for that second one that came out right around the first East Coast Oi Fest in '06. So it was like
Oh,
2004. Then yeah, if it was 2004, then you weren't.
I was
Yeah,
in
we
LA.
recorded it 04, '05, and then it was probably right before you.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember I came back to Jersey for a visit, saw Broken Heroes at Connections, and it was, I want to say, I could be wrong. I think it was Brian back on drums and Meathead was singing after like a long
Yes. and they did that split with Weekend Warriors from Pittsburgh. Those guys are really cool guys. I don't know what happened to any of them, but they were good. They were good dudes. And and yeah, that's when they first got back around. And then Meathead, I think it was family stuff. Just needed to spend more time at home. I think they were moving or building a house, or I know they just got they were having starting their family, having kids, um and uh and that was like they didn't know what they were gonna do. And I don't know if they asked me or not. Broke Cement Shoes was done the summer of '02, and I think it was around the end of the summer of '03. I was like, I think I would do that, you know. And I talked to a few friends who were like, you should. They weren't like hell yeah, but they were like, because they know I like to ponder and think things through and overanalyze and all this stuff, you know. Um, I was like, what if I can't stick around? I'd hate to, leave them high and dry. But I stuck around for a good long time and and had a blast. And when I first joined up, uh, Tim was very supportive. I even heard through a mutual friend, how happy he was. And I'm like, that made me feel so good. As far as I was concerned, Broken Heroes, and I still think this in more of a cordial way and truthful way. But back then, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, 2003, Broken Heroes, way cooler than Mike Fintzy. But like, if you'll have me, I'll join. And Big Bry was drumming, and we were close. We still are, but I mean, back then it was like you see him every day or every other day. Um, uh, I called him. I called Brian Ramsey, and I'm like, hey man, I'm like, if they're looking for a singer and they'll have me, I'm like, I'll do it. And they said yeah. Pete was happy about it. I think I talked before earlier. I don't have the best range, but it's punk rock, and I just kind of took it and ran. And I liked writing lyrics to the stuff that Pete and it was primarily Pete and Tim writing, and I was like, I had a blast. Those recordings, I still listen to them from time to time, and and uh, and I think about where we were and how we all acted back then. It was a bit of rock star stuff going on back then. Without I would say, with all apologies to anybody that noticed, and I know there's some people that did, I started getting arrogant, a little bit of arrogance. I think I really felt great about myself of being able to take the reins as singer of Broken Heroes. I think it puffed me up a bit. And my apologies to anyone. I think everybody generally would say, "Oh, Mike, good guy, nice guy." Maybe they would. I don't know. But people that were closer to me, Pete called me out once, and he did it in Pete fashion. He did it perfectly, and I remember it vividly outside of Octopod and in a text message also. And I was like, all right, I gotta come down. But yeah, I don't think I was. Maybe somebody would say I was. I'm sure I got under people's skin. Public apology. I'm not that person. But back then I was I think I was a little too big for my britches. But it added to the excitement. That's for sure. One of them would have been at the Meat Locker. There was a band that was a bigger band, and they brought a big crowd, and they wanted to go on before us so that they could get to bed, so that they could take their flight, with less stress. And I was like, that's messed up. That's not good etiquette. These people are here for you. They're not going to stick around for us. I know they'd enjoy us, but they're not going to stick around after you play. And I bugged out. I even got on stage, I think, and mouthed off. I just stood there until the song was over, and then I mouthed off to the guy. Like, who does that? I'm sorry. Sorry, guys.
Well, look, don't be too broken up over that. I'm not going to mention the band, but fuck that guy in that band. All I'm going to say, fuck that guy. I've never liked that guy,
No, okay.
so fuck him. But we're not going to say the name of the band, but you know who I'm
No, no,
talking
no. Yeah. You were
about.
there.
He was in some other band too that I couldn't fucking stand. But anyway,
All right.
we'll
Yeah,
talk.
I notice I didn't mention who we clobbered at that Broken Hero show at Obsessions, my first gig fight. But that guy, you would know who he is. I could tell you off the record later.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, but yeah, you know what? And there was that time outside of connections. There was a guy that was playing acoustic stuff in between sets, and he was upset that Pete turned up his amp to tune because we're getting ready to go on. Someone came and got me out of the front room at Connections and said, "Oh, somebody's got a problem with your guy." And I go back there, and so I started, taking charge on that, and I ended up bitch slapping the guy in front of everyone, like a real telegraph, like here it is, and then bam, and then it gets separated, and then he hits me in the back of the head later, and he was really just he was there for like a good old fashioned scrap, and I was like, this is life or death, like you don't you don't do that to us, how dare you, and and really, if you can kill a guy by smacking the back of his head into the concrete or the asphalt, actually I think we were in the street, into the asphalt really hard, which you can, I was out of line. That was too far. And when it was over, he stood up. He had a big welt on the back of his skull, and he wanted to shake my hand, and I wouldn't shake his hand. He thought it was squash, like two brothers or friends having a squabble, and I was just, my ego was hurt. How dare you try to you know dominate a situation that, a Broken Hero show. Brr, you know, that's my downfall there. That was the beginning of me, finding my way and becoming humble. Go up so that you can level out. Sorry, sir, that I did that.
Well, look, man, you don't learn how to do things right until you do a bunch of things wrong.
Right. I
Uh,
agree. I agree. But I do a lot of self reflection. I'm a to the best of my ability humble, God fearing child of God, and can't treat other people like that, and can't be aggressive towards other people, and still believe in in the teachings of Yahweh and Jesus. And that's who I am now. That's not a popular subject with a lot of people in the punk rock scene, although there are plenty of us that that are out there. But that really, it's not just like an insurance policy or wishful thinking. It's something that really convicted me, and that's really why I left Broken Heroes. It was like, I can't sing songs about not being tolerant anymore. Can't sing songs about, you're no friend of mine. It's an awesome song. I'll dance to it. Maybe I shouldn't. I don't know, but I'll sing along with it. But I can't be spatting it out as a lead singer. Uh, it doesn't jive with my philosophy, and that's really important to me. So, um, yeah, love Broken Heroes, love old school punk rock, listen to offensive music. I wouldn't want my daughter to hear a lot of the stuff I listen to. Um, but I mean, she has good taste in music. Don't get me wrong. She loves Sweet. She loves ELO. She loves old school Van Halen. She loves Cocksparrow. That she found on her own. Just whatever was on the speaker playing, and she started saying, "What's that song? Going back, going back." She's 3 years old. I'm like, "We're coming back. We're coming back." She's like, "Yeah," and now she'll sing it to me. I'll sing some of it. She'll sing the next few lines. But yeah, I have my convictions, and if anybody thought thinks the 2000, I'd say the real height of my arrogance, if you think the 2008 and 9 version of me was bad, I invite you to come and have a conversation with me again if you see me out in public or online or whatever. I'm very serene now, I like to think, and everybody's friend, future, past, and present.
well, look, man, you were a friend to a lot of people back then too.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah, yeah,
give,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
give yourself a little bit of a break.
Oh
I
yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you on that. I wasn't a total monster, but yeah.
well, we all live and learn and we grow, and what's important and what's the driving force behind much of this channel I have is, reconnecting with people now, because not only do we get to talk about the times and the days, but we get to connect with where we are now.
Oh yeah.
I think it may have even been with Pete. perhaps. I was talking about like the scene today, and you go to a show, skinhead show in 2024, or a hardcore show up here in Boston, because a lot of the old Slapshot guys are still
Oh
playing.
yeah.
The SSD guys are floating around different events. And it's all about, talking about family, talking about kids, talking about career, and
Yeah.
we've all arrived at such a cool place, because we got through those those crazier times,
Uh-huh.
um, and now we can kind of celebrate the fact we're all still here, and
Oh
we're
yeah.
friends. That Jersey scene, we're all still connected, no matter where we happen to be in the country or the world. You
It's
know,
true. I
um,
love I loved listening to Emilio talk about like how the pipeline brings people just right up to him in person. Like, I know who you are, and I know this, and that he sees bands that were at the pipeline that are now more of a success on a different level. And so glad that he is as cool as he is. That makes the pipeline days even better, right? Am I right? That he was and that he caused a lot of that, what was going on. And the fighting, well, it might not be exactly what he wanted. He knew that it was part of the atmosphere. He knew that it was I liked when he said um whether you agree with anti-flag or not, they that he wanted to give anybody a platform that, I'm sure he has his limit. I'm not saying that, but he's like they deserve a platform to do what they want. And like Jersey Pete said about some of the politics in the scene, especially back in the 90s and early 2000s, um he's like, it's the crowd will sort that out, you know. And they did, and we did, they did, you know. Think of that riot at East Coast Oi Fest when the Foreskins played.
yeah,
And that actually started off with two girls. I talked to the people that were like the, I don't know, manager or organizer with the Foreskins, and we were in the elevator at the hotel, and he's like, oh, we watched the footage on 4 or 5 different cameras, and he's like, it really just started with two girls. He's like, you thought it was like a white power versus traditional skinhead thing, but it just, as things were going off, the white power guys were getting loud, and then everybody got louder yelling boneheads go home. But it really started with two girls, and then a big garbage can full of empty bottles went over, and people started throwing bottles, and the cops come in with the riot gear. They opened up the walls. I guess the walls went up like a garage door, the one wall, almost the whole length of the place, and you just see all these cops in riot gear standing there. And then that's when we didn't get to play. That's when just bands went on when they wanted. We should have just played when we got a chance to run up there with our amps. We were waiting for some organization, and bands just kept going, playing whenever they wanted, and we should have just weaseled our way in there, Broken Hero style. But yeah, I digress.
those were cool. I remember the first time I did it was 2006. I just rejoined the band. I think that was my first show with the band after coming back. Um, I don't even think I had a drum set yet. So I
Oh
sold
no.
my drums when I lived in LA and I came back. I used Chad Blanks or Chad
Okay.
76 that day. And that was a good weekend. Then in 2007, we played it again with Reagan Youth, remember? I
Uh,
think we went on right before Reagan Youth. And then 2008
was
was,
that CB? Was that CB's?
no, that was at Allentown.
Oh, at the Oi Fest.
Yeah, because the
Okay. Yeah,
first
we
one,
played. Yeah, we didn't. We were gonna play 08, but we played 06 and 07.
yeah,
East Coast Oi Fest.
yeah.
One was at the Sterling Ballroom, and one was Crocodile Rock. The second two were Crocodile Rock.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
because '07 was Reagan Youth. I remember them specifically. And then '08 was when the shit hit the fan and
Yeah.
you know,
I had a feeling I was talking about the anti-nowhere league shows earlier, and we went up to see them in Rhode Island, and then we went to see them in Brooklyn, and that's when we started hanging out with them a little bit. I was walking around with I had found moonshine in the basement of the farm I was living at, and so I would bring moonshine in a flask everywhere I went. Sometimes you come home with half a flask. Sometimes somebody really loves it and empties it out. Uh, the one guitarist of Anti Nowhere League loved it, and so that was kind of where we got to socialize with them a little bit. And then when they played at Crocodile Rock, the third show that we saw um, with Blanks, there was these guys there that were questionable, and turns out they're just kind of they were political. They were what Allentown was known for back 10 years prior, or 20 years prior in the 90s, and I guess they were still around, and they stomped on some little kid, and they were causing all kinds of trouble. They kind of liked me. I'm a I'm a half a Jew, but I'm Turkish, and but my Irish and English look is there, and I get this big red beard, and I dance like a goon, and so they kind of liked me, and I'm like, back off, jerks. I know what you're all about, but I'm like that. The East Coast Oi Fest is like a month away. I'm like, it's gonna be bad news. Like, you could tell from this anti-New Orleans League show that it's not that the Oi Fest is not going to be good. And I think Oxblood was on the bill, Fed Up was on the bill, a lot of New York bands were on the bill. I mean, like, this is not like all white bald heads walking around. But they were still there. They started getting loud when the riot happened, and yeah, that was a mess. That's not the only riot we've been in together, Joel.
Well, when I was talking to Pete, we brought up the Allen, not the Allentown, the
The Delaware,
yes. And Pete
Delaware.
was asking about the chant that the skinheads used. I remembered it after the conversation. It was "We are skinheads, we bust heads," which is
Oh
very
yeah,
creative,
I missed that.
of itself. But yeah, the Oi skinheads versus the homie hardcore guys. It did not go well for the hardcore guys.
So my recollection of that is a little different than what I think you and Pete were talking about it on his interview. And I remember it like a little standoff. There was that band room, had a big open window. I think that's where you and Chip were sitting and bantering the hardcore band. And he's like, "I called you out," and he points at Chip. And Chip's like, "Play, bitch."
It's like,
And
okay, you called me out. Now what?
but and then you guys are out of the situation. It's the locals, the hardcore locals, and the skinhead locals. And I remember it being kind of like a standoff in that band area, and somebody was standing on Chip's bass guitar, is in the case, and I go to pull it and lift it up, and somebody thought I was going to throw it. They're like, "No, no, no, no," and I was like, "No, I don't want anybody standing on this." And then when it went off, it was inside and outside, and we're just pushing our cabinets. They're rolling our stuff out. And I figure, as long as we're rolling equipment out, I feel kind of safe. We're just out of town. We're here, playing, and it was true. Like, there's stuff going on all around us. We're just kind of rolling our stuff out, and people left us alone. And that was pretty exciting. And though I gotta tell you, the energy and want to fight and be in a riot in Delaware, those guys they reminded me of us in the 90s. And that was like 2007 or 8 or 9 or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, yeah, maybe '06. But yeah, that's what it reminded me of. Is like, I think maybe we were just all really close and friendly in New Jersey. We all knew each other. And maybe that's why it didn't go off like that a lot. But yeah, that was exciting in Delaware. We didn't get that, I'd say, in Broken Heroes, and in Clifton, and even in the city. We go play these shows in the city sometimes. The North Six in Brooklyn. Those were just like, we kind of knew everybody. So I think that maybe that's why there wasn't these big riots.
Do you remember the baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire at the Delaware show?
I don't. I remember the one guy he was across the street with a pipe, and he had three guys that didn't want to approach him, but they were trying to, and he's just ready. I didn't see the outcome of it, but I don't remember a bat. I don't remember the bat with barbed wire. That's like you come prepared. If you got a bat with, I mean, you got a pipe. You happen to have a pipe, or you find it. But a bat with barbed wire, that's that's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely like the time that stands out in my mind. And
Yeah.
if you recall, Pete and I were talking about those individuals who'd come see us or were very they were quick to express their appreciation to our band, and they may have not been sharp skinheads, okay?
Right. Yeah.
The other kind, but somehow they were cool with us. It was like, okay, we'll be cool back. Don't hurt us.
Yeah.
And if I recall, one of the guys, we'll just call him Rommel for the purposes of this conversation.
Okay.
So Rommel comes up and he's like, "Get the fuck out of here, guys. Shit's gonna go down in a few minutes. Get your shit and go." Do you remember that? Like we were
No,
tipped
where were we?
at Delaware.
Oh, really?
Yeah, one of those guys tipped us off. Like you're gonna get the fuck out of here.
Oh,
Like
wow.
there's gonna be something going down. Do you remember
Wow.
that?
I don't remember that, but um, I mean, that could be. Were you saying there was the questionable guys, or because it was a motorcycle club bar too. That
Mhm.
was turf for a club, and I mean, I remember one night we were sitting in these particular seats at the bar, and Kurt said, "Hey, no problem sitting here. Just want to let you know that if anybody comes up and tells you you have to get up, but you should get up." And I'm like, "Yeah, no problem. We're not gonna mess around in that territory. No way." But but yeah, I who knows? Who knows down there?
Well,
You're you're not far from the Mason Dixon line, right? Is that stereotype? Am I stereotype? I shouldn't even say that because we've been further south and everybody's awesome. So
yeah,
I
yeah.
shouldn't even. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, there are cool people everywhere. There are
that's
shit
true.
everywhere. I don't recall us when I was in a band ever making enemies at all to the point where like we ever felt threatened. You know, like there were some sketchy fucking people at our shows, and everybody was kind of cool. Like, you
Yeah,
know, nobody. Like I was talking about it with Pete. Like we would just play. We were just the band on the bill that night. You
yeah,
know, let us get through our bill, let us get paid, and let us get the fuck out of town. Like that's all
yeah.
we want.
Oh yeah, I agree. That there was plenty of those, and you know what? I mean, it's even in Jersey. There, before I went to Connections regularly, Murphy's Law was playing. I think it was got to be '01 or '02, and I'm like, I had been to Connections once before. It was kind of like a weird night, and I was like, it's not the Pipeline, that's for sure. And but Murphy's Law is playing. Let's go. And there was some dudes there, and they were sea hiling, and you know how Connections is set up. There's no backstage. You walk off the stage and through the crowd, and um, I don't know his name, but Murphy's Law had the drummer with the braids. He's Puerto Rican, and his girlfriend got up and started telling some really nasty jokes about white power people. Like they were the butt of the joke, and and uh and it was like I was like, this is gonna be like a standoff here. And props to Murphy's Law for not telling her to stop and just letting her state that these guys in the crowd are not welcome. And I'm thinking like, well, like what do I do as someone, especially in cement shoes? We were very aggressive towards white power and anybody that even had a Confederate flag or something like that. We were just like, that's a calling card for enemy. And um and I'm like, well, am I supposed to walk the walk here? I'm like, I don't know Murphy's Law, not at this point. I'm like, and props to them for just being ready for whatever happens. I mean, one of the guys during one of the songs pulls out a knife and stabs his beer and drinks it like that. and the bouncers were just like, put the knife away, you know? And I'm like, all right, so these guys are in with the bouncers. They have knives. They're big dudes. And Murphy's Law doesn't know me from anybody else. You know, what's my position here? And but I'd have to say the next year joined Broken Heroes and start playing there a lot. And that element wasn't there anymore. I don't even know who those guys were. But I know that there was a certain group that was out in the Clifton Passaic area, and I never ran into them before. I don't know if that was these guys, but yeah, some of that stuff. Pete says it's gone. I have no idea, but that stuff was tough. It's tough in America to be part of that scene, and you know, props to anybody that would walk around with skinhead on their flight or tattooed on them or on their shirt. Um, in the city, it wasn't that hard, you know. People are in the know. People that aren't are just minding their own business, and people that are in the know at these shows and stuff, it's for them. It's been around a long time. Uh, in New Jersey, as far as these people know, it came out in 1988 on Geraldo. You know, the skinhead's not from any reggae or rocksteady or Jamaican culture. You know, it's all the movies and Geraldo. You know, and yeah, so props to anybody that was you know in the skinhead scene back then. It was weird. It's a weird time.
Well, it's different now because everybody's backs hurt. You know what I mean?
Everybody's backs hurt.
Yeah, like we're just
My back
we're
hurts
tired.
tremendously. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it is different.
It's like end the show at 10. I gotta go to bed. You know, that's
Oh yeah, so many people were talking about that at the Rev Stubbs show. That we were all out of there at a decent hour. That's
yeah.
one thing I really wish I was born a little bit earlier, or at least a little cooler, a little earlier, and gone to like Sunday matinees at CB's.
Hmm.
Because there's people that are just a year or two older than me that were going to those. Um, those sound, I mean, those weren't exactly safest times either. You know, there's a lot of talk about unity and this and that, but there you can see interviews with heavies from the scene saying what they brought into the pit with them and how they treated people they didn't know um and I'm not trying to talk down on anybody. I'm just saying it was dangerous. And I'd say even the pipeline was dangerous. I think at the time Stormwatch played at the pipeline. I don't remember what year it was, but a lot of the New York guys went in, came over to Newark and went, and it wasn't our club that night. It was anybody could turn on you at any time, and that's the kind of element that Stormwatch liked. You can watch the video now; it's on YouTube, and they even comment on how there's usually more fights at their shows. And I'm just sticking to the shadows, little Mike, sticking to the shadows back then and enjoying the show and hoping nobody gives me a hard time. Because I mean, it would have been a swarm of big, tough guys. And now you see any of the guys from Stormwatch, and it's totally different. How many years later now? Is it 25 years later? I think the last time I saw any of them was Niblick and Broken Heroes and US Chaos and trying to think of really good band, South Class Veterans, newer band at the time. And then one of the guys from Stormwatch was there, and you get to have a great conversation with them. Like everybody's relaxed now. Everybody lost their angst. Maybe not lost it, but we learned to adapt to boy civilization in the 2020s, or back then it was 2019.
But
But
I see it, Mike, there were those issues back then, and there was philosophical differences, turf differences, and all that.
yeah,
Now, motherfuckers we know are dying. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
It's a different thing now. Like
yeah.
our
And back
kids,
then it was just part of it.
yeah,
Hip hop's got breakdancing and graffiti. We had, two-step and fighting. Fighting was part of it. It really was. You were looking for trouble, and you weren't supposed to fight people at the show. That's supposed to be against society, and if we're all at the show, then but we all we wanted a fight. It was part of the fun. And you're right though. Now people are dying, and we talk about our allergies and our back pains at shows, uh and that's how it goes. That's where we're at now, and it's still awesome. And I still like going to shows. I don't do it nearly as often. I mean, I was I told you we went to see Anti-Nowhere League 3 days in a row. There was a time, Murphy's Law, you see them all the time, but for some reason decided to see them at the Continental, then at Connections, and then at Stone Pony. Maybe there was I think it was 3 days in a row. And I was working full time, and I was actually going to class. I was working at Nissan, and they were sending me to class to learn some intricate stuff during the day, and I could not concentrate. I was on no sleep, but it was more important to go see Murphy's Law 3 days in a row, and that's what we did. Not anymore. It's not happening anymore. I don't care who it is. I mean, I could think of some bands that I would like to see 3 days in a row. Wretched Ones. I would love to see Wretched Ones 3 days in a row. And I don't know what kind of psychic ability I had, but I was seeing in 2007 and 8. I was seeing Wretched Ones as much as I could for whatever reason, and it could be at the Meat Locker or it could be in Albany. And I was just like, I'm going. And I don't know why, but I'm glad I did. I don't have the energy, and they're not around. So, but yeah, I have to say, early 90s all the way up until till now, but I'd say things really, I sliced it off around the time I left Broken Heroes. And that was, I had a good run. Abused my body, but Big Bry used to let me take out the drum set. I think there's some footage somewhere. And I would take out the drum set. One night I broke his kick pedal, so I bought him a new one, but didn't stop him. And then when Quincy joined up, I said, should I be jumping into the drum set? And he's like, sure. And I did it. He didn't like it, and he didn't want to talk to me. I don't know what I did besides jumping into the drum set, but that was the end of it. Read the room, but yeah, my back is paying for it. I've done other things too that are bad for my back, but yeah, those were the good old days, man, for sure.
Definitely. Glad to have shared some of them with you, my friend.
Yeah.
And I think this could very well be officially the longest Broken Heroes member interview on this.
Hip hip hooray.
Yes, yes. I'll have to see if I can track down Meathead one of these days and do one of
Yeah,
these.
I can connect you with his girlfriend's Facebook account. That's how I talk to him. And yeah, I catch up with him when he's working at his job. I run into him, and he's got the kind of job where he can sit and talk to me for quite a while, and we catch up. Yeah, see what he's doing and what's going on, and he's a joy to talk to. Love Meathead.
Yeah, well, maybe we could make that happen. We'll see.
Yeah, I'll let you know what I can do for you. I'm glad you're talking to Larry. I'm excited to see that.
Yes.
I said I was going to gush over Larry. I don't know if we were recording at the time, but love you, Larry. He's a pleasure. He really is, and he's one of the people like it's just kind of like just mingling in the same crowds. You get to know each other a little bit, but it wasn't until I needed nothing was a problem, but just need a little advice on a legal contract, and we just started talking about everything else. And he's a good dude. He really is. You're gonna
Yeah.
have an. I'm jealous. I should interview Larry. I'll do it after you.
Yeah,
But
looking
that's the
forward.
other thing is he doesn't like text messaging, and I text him more than I call him. But I should call him. He's such a joy. Way to go, Larry. Way to be a great human being.
Looking forward to that one, man. That'll
Yeah.
be nice for sure.
You you're in the know. You got a lot of people you could put on a list.
Oh
And you
yeah.
could Yeah,
Yeah,
you got a lot of time.
there's some big ones coming. I can't announce them yet, but they're
Okay.
coming.
You
So
know, Joel, props to you for being such a wealth of knowledge on so many different genres. Like some of the stuff you post, I'm like, I don't know how he knows this and that. And I mean, if you're hungry for it, you're gonna learn it. But I'm just like, I feel kind of like lame thinking about like the stuff I listen to over and over again, and I should be expanding my the stuff I listen to. I'm like, you're into everything, and you know facts about people that I'm just like, where is this coming from? I'm like, good on you, man, and good with your success and all these cool people that you're talking to. I'm not talking about me. And what's the who was the drummer of the Lunatics that you interviewed? That was cool.
Becky, Becky.
Yeah, so cool. I was late to the game with the Lunatics. I saw them at a work tour, and I was like blown away. It was like 2000 or 99 or something like that. It was in Asbury. I'm like, this is, and they're right in my back door.
Mhm.
They're playing Coney all the time. So many regrets. Holidays in the Sun in Asbury. I was like, eh. Then I found out like someone threw a couch out a window or off a balcony onto a cop car. And all these bands were there, all these British bands, English, European bands. And there's a video out there. I have the DVD. It was AF playing at CB's in 2004. And I was like, I should go up there. I didn't know they were going to record, but I remember what show it was. And I'm like, I should go. Like, it was so hot outside. It was like middle of summer. It was so hot outside. For even being outside for 5 minutes, I'm like, I'm not going to the city and I'm not going to CB's. I'm like, that show, now I watch it and I can't take my eyes off the screen. I'm like, there's so much going on in there and the sound is awesome and regrets. Can't go to everything, I guess.
Holidays in the Sun was fun. Saw GBH there. Iron Cross played.
Yeah, I should have gone. And people travel all over the world to go to stuff like that. And I'm just like, I'm going to stay home. I'm an hour and 5 minutes away. I'm not going to go. Lame, lame, Mike. Shame on you. But
Every show's a goddamn festival these days, so you'll be able
no,
to make up.
back then it was a little different, I guess. You know, and there's other stuff that I just never caught up on. Like I didn't like Melio was talking about the Addicts playing at the Pipeline. How did I miss that? Unless it was before '93. But when they played Connections, it was incredible. That was the first time I saw them, and I had the Songs of Praise album, which is, in my opinion, like a best of album. Maybe it is. I don't know, but all the best songs are on that, except for Joker and the Pack. It's missing, but um, and when they played there was glitter on the carpet in the stage. There was glitter there for over a year. Every time Broken Heroes played there after that, you look down and you see the glitter and you think of like the awesomeness of the Addicts being at Connections.
Were you at the Dickies show at Connections?
I was not.
That
I was
had
not.
been the most crowded I'd ever seen that club. Was when
Yeah. I
yeah,
saw them. I saw them at a Fiend Fest, which is on the summer stage outside of Stone Pony. That was when I first joined Broken Heroes. That was in '03, and every band was awesome. I don't know how they chose who went first. DI went on first. Later on, Dickies and the Damned, and I think H2O played. And I know I'm missing another old school band, but I don't know how who went first. But all the bands were awesome, and the Dickies included were awesome. And then I saw them at Stanhope House around the corner from my house. I hate it. I moved into this house in Netcom 2 years ago, and they stopped doing good shows at Stanhope House. I could walk there, and but that's how it goes. But yeah, Dickies played there, and it was like that. It was packed, but the guitarist, the long time guitarist, he's just like showboating in front of us. Like anybody that was in front of him, crowded at the stage, it was like he was playing to us. It was such a nice interaction. The Dickies they're cool dudes, I guess. I haven't talked to them, but the way they hold themselves, you can tell.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's a great band, great band. Well, we can go on for another 2 hours, but we probably shouldn't,
All right.
at least for this video. But we'll have to do this again sometime.
Hope this was interesting to everyone. I don't know where I went with this. It's a nice trip down memory lane for me, and we got to say the names of people we miss and love. I love you, Joel. I'm so glad that we're still in connection with each other, and like I said in the beginning, I'm I'm ecstatic that you asked me to be part of this with you, this interview, this podcast for sure.
Right on, man. Love you too. Glad
Yeah.
to have spent my Thursday night chatting with you, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thursday night, yeah.
Hey, we're talking punk rock on a Thursday night. Who would?
We sure started at 10 and gone till early morning.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
What we'll do is we won't shower tonight. We'll stay up till 5 o'clock, something to eat, and then we'll go to work for 8 hours just to
There
be
we go.
magic. If I did that now, I'd be dead by noon.
I I don't get a lot of sleep these days. I was up till 4 last night doing inventory. I went to work and then I got home, a little before 3, and then I watched the Broken Hero set from Jeff Stubbs' memorial is online.
Yeah,
Chuck from Love Cinema put it up, and so I watched that for 40 minutes, and then I went to bed around 4. So sorry if I'm not at my best, but what are you gonna do?
you've been great, man. Thanks so much for
All right.
coming on.
Thank you. Thanks everybody.
I'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Night, Joel.